Hello there. It has been a little while, so I am going to read some more anachronisms. And half the reason is probably, well, let me tell you what's happened since I've last seen you. I finished a very mostly positive experience, a really good job a contract job that lasted for about 2.5 months. Um, Turned 55 a week and a half or so ago, 2 weeks ago maybe, and caught COVID directly after that, very last day of my job. Um, and this was a week and a half after I got my second booster shot. So mostly that preface is to say I need to get a new job, and therefore I expect to be on the phone a little bit. I've got also to do bunches of phone calls. I've kind of just been. I took about a break of a week with COVID, and it was not that bad, but it was COVID, and and now I'm here to read some poems so that I can warm myself up like a theater person, because I do have to get on the phone shortly. I'm going to read, I think, and I don't think I've done these. I'll find out soon enough, I suppose. The August of 2021 uh, poems that were posted. August of 2021. So the first one I'll read is posted Sunday, August the 1st, 2021. It's number 3312. And the subtitle is What's Normal Anyway? Again, I haven't even looked at these poems to read before I read them to you. I should probably counter that at some point, but I'm not going to today. Things being so very upside down these days, I wonder if I were to have an occasion in which to interact, would my social anxiety be noticeable at all? Would it be noticed? As an extrovert with what has always felt to me to be pretty severe social anxiety, for as far back as I can remember, it seems from all that I can glean from those with whom I have been while interacting with others, that I have generally come across apparently as quite at ease with being social. It has on numerous times been further suggested by those with whom I would occasionally pal around that being amongst folks and happenstances social may well be my natural habitat. Don't think this is unusual for folks with social anxiety. When I began to comprehend the severity of what anxiety would do to me, when I first began to call such issues anxiety, I began addressing it with doctors and therapists, and began thanks especially to them, to address the illness with medications, prescriptions, began at least to realize the discrepancy between the conflict that I would feel within myself and any given social situation, and how much an effort it would take in order to either force myself into the social so that I might in some way fulfill that extroverted need to interact, embarrassing and awkward as it might each time feel, or how much easier it would at any given time be for me to, as soon as the time came for such, as soon as the lights went up after the reading was over, for example, that decision would truly only then be made, and quickly, whether I was going to interact or whether instead I would swiftly lift myself out of my sitting position and at a quick enough pace and with my head held steadily down and a gaze toward the ground a bit in front of my feet, at a pace that could not have looked at all natural, I would glide to the entrance of the room and out the entranceway, and no looking back, right out of the building, and then at the same pace I'd keep walking for a block and then another block until I knew that I was no longer at risk of having to interact. I became astonished to learn to hear from one person after another, from people who know, from the closest of my supposed friends or boyfriends or the like, that they'd no idea I'd any anxiety at all, at least not of the social variety, that I was, to them, well, oddly enough, I was that insect which would veritably fill my gut each time I made the effort or found that I was trapped into an awkward state wherein felt I had to interact. They would actually say that I was a butterfly, a social butterfly. It always stopped me dead to hear that, and yet to this day I appreciate such an incorrect assumption, the error of it, of course, but also the pride at passing. For real, I fit in. I was not at all apparent. It was not at all apparent what a wreck I often felt I was. That ease which I so wanted, that ease it seemed to me so many had, that for me was only an impossible thing that I could but envy. Well, that was quite some time ago. There have been a few important events and circumstances that have transpired which have impacted me in my so-called anxiety. The biggest of these, I do believe, would be that due to a few related extenuating circumstances over the past half a dozen years, it has become more and more rare that I might even find myself in a situation wherein I might interact. And when those moments happen, I still most definitely feel the tension, feel the conflict in my gut, but whereas in the past I would pass as being quite at ease to my mind, granted, with almost no additional perspective, no pal around who could tell me differently, I would have to say that what might have been seen as ease by all those others way back when would today be seen as quite a bit more rickety than that. In fact, I bet my anxiety would much more likely than not be pretty clear to most anyone near. Why so different now? And I wrote this a year ago about. For one thing, having lived so long in ways that were so unfamiliar in any life I'd ever known before, like, for example, there was the 6 months I spent living on the street during evenings and nights while playing business casual in a cubicle during business hours, or that entire year spent living in a shelter, or now, and thankfully approaching 3 years living in my own small space, but all the while without a familiar soul around me, and rare at that to even have people in my vicinity or room. And need I even mention that all this isolation has been further propagated by the not insignificant amount of enforceable mitigation thanks to a lengthy pandemic. And while I would not exactly say that this pandemic is exactly the reason for this more identifiable anxiety, it certainly has exacerbated it. Now that I have spent a full year and a half in almost complete isolation in the very same tiny apartment with less and less steps made outside of this small living space. And when I do cross the threshold between in and out of it, times that seem more and more rare, these but few excursions involve less and less distance and have me masked. Head down, gazing in front of my feet again, barely speaking with a soul, much less acknowledging others' presence. So, truth be told, it's been so long, this isolation, that I might say that it is the routine, even if it hasn't quite become comfortable. A thing I am aghast to think. But what I really mean by this is that it's quite become already plenty routine, such that it's now incorrect to call a thing like isolation abnormal, unusual. Anything but just another day from which I sit atop my bed some mornings and some afternoons, some early evenings, or like right at this moment, some dark hours, which were the times a bit more ordinary now. I might just call ungodly, writing sentences like this, one on top of yet another, that I build like so until they put all together become a something that I might so package and then load into a laptop, and so until, voila, I pull a trigger that then shoots it out into the atmosphere in hopes it might reach anyone who's of a mind to read. Hello. Good day. How are you? How are you? Are you there? It sure is nice to think so, I must say. But thank you. Thank you. I'm not for sure you're not a figment, but just in case, I wonder what you'd see if you were to look out a window, perhaps, I'd love so much to know just what you see. As for me, and here, where dawn is finally breaking, it looks as if it's going to be another gorgeous day. Seems an appropriate place to start, given what I was saying earlier, and that I need to get back in the habit of at least speaking, if not, of course, engaging. Thank you.